the Renaissance. The word itself means rebirth of beauty, science, and the human spirit. We imagine it as the moment humanity awakened from the darkness of the Middle Ages, when reason triumphed over superstition, and artists like Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael lit up the world with genius. But the truth is far more complicated. Behind the masterpieces and marble, the Renaissance had a shadow, a system of control disguised as enlightenment. Because art wasn't just about beauty, it was about power. The 15th and 16th centuries were ruled by patrons, the men and institutions who paid for art. And the biggest patron of all was the Catholic Church. It was the Church that financed the grand frescoes, the cathedrals, and the sculptures that defined the Renaissance. But that beauty came with a price. Every brushstroke was a weapon of persuasion. Take Michelangelo's Last Judgment. Painted on the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel, it shows the souls of humanity rising and falling, some dragged to hell, others pulled toward salvation. It's stunning, but it's also terrifying. It reminds every believer, disobey, and this is your fate. The church wasn't just decorating a chapel, it was reinforcing its control through fear, guilt, and divine authority wrapped in paint. Art became theology, visual sermons that told people what to believe without words. In a time when most couldn't read, paintings were the media of the age, and the church controlled the message. Even artists we now see as rebels weren't immune. Leonardo da Vinci, scientist, humanist, freethinker, still painted the Last Supper for a monastery. His masterpiece wasn't just about perspective or innovation, it was a visual anchor for Christian ritual. Every composition, every gesture reinforced church doctrine, that salvation flowed through Christ and his disciples. Meanwhile, in Florence, the Medici family turned art into propaganda of another kind. They commissioned Botticelli, Donatello, and Michelangelo not for faith, but for power. Their portraits of saints conveniently resembled Medici ancestors. Their family crests appeared in biblical scenes. It was subtle, but effective. They used divine imagery to legitimize their rule, making it seem as if wealth itself was blessed by heaven. Even the humanism of the Renaissance, this idea that man was the measure of all things, wasn't entirely free. It served a new form of control, ego. Rulers and merchants competed to immortalize themselves in marble and oil to be remembered forever. Art became the currency of legacy, the new temple of vanity. And while painters and sculptors gained fame, they were still servants. Michelangelo called the Pope my tormentor. Leonardo fled courts when politics turned. For every piece of beauty there was a price in obedience. But the irony, that same propaganda, those same paintings meant to keep people obedient, ended up liberating the mind instead. Because once art taught people to look closer, they started questioning what they saw. When Raphael painted the School of Athens, the Vatican didn't notice that he had placed ancient philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, right in the heart of papal power, pagans in the house of God. The church saw beauty, but the people saw something else, a spark of forbidden thought. The Renaissance began as a system of control, but it accidentally planted the seeds of rebellion. The awe meant to bind people to the church eventually turned their eyes toward reason, science, and individuality. The same frescoes that told people to obey made them think. So yes, the Renaissance gave us divine beauty. But behind the perfection of those faces and cathedrals was manipulation, fear, and politics. Art wasn't just an expression of freedom, it was a battlefield. And every painting, every sculpture was propaganda wearing the mask of paradise. The Renaissance changed the world, but it did so not because it freed humanity overnight, but because it showed that truth could be hidden in plain sight. And once you learn to see it, you can never unsee it again. Unsee it.